Hey everyone, welcome to another STARSTRUCK episode with Alice Sparkly Cat, Aries, innovative Aries, fellow fire sign. Hey Alice.
Hi, how are you?
Good, I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about the planetary is political and how astrology has become something of a tool for activism, self-actualization, telling the world who you are and really understanding yourself. And that's something you do a lot with your work. So Alice, you're an astrologer and a community organizer and use arts for activism. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do astrology, I do readings with clients, and then I also do these community programs. And I feel like the two actually like kind of feed each other.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Just how to like validate people by improving their social relations with one another.
So coming into groups. So that's, this is a relatively newer thing. I mean, astrology has always been something that I've found to be an icebreaker. Do you find that? It's like we have all, not only is the world more divided than ever, but it's, and not in a good way, but also in some important ways where people are really defining their identities and wanting to identify as this or that. So how do you find that astrology plays into that?
Well, I feel like when you're in group setting, like whether it is like a community program where you're just hanging out with your friends, if you ask people like, oh, what sign you are, they start talking about like themselves in a really great way. Not just like, oh, this is who I am, this is what I do, but like, oh, I'm like a fire sign, so like this thing happened to me, I like got so angry and like laughing about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like it gives you this permission to be who you are. And do you, so you do readings for people of all ages. You were telling me that you work with senior citizens and teens predominantly. Does astrology come up in that work?
It does, yeah. I did a class with the senior citizens about astrology.
You did?
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was cool, but like they mostly knew their birthdays in terms of the lunar calendar. Oh. So I was like looking at just like how Chinese astrology and Western astrology like lined up and showing them the differences. But they knew a lot of it already. And yeah, and like with the other senior group, there was this one guy who came in and started talking about like, well, I am like a Leo with Pluto and Leo, like,
oh wow,
yeah, like really talking about his plutonic tendencies. I was like, okay, wow, we can have like a pretty good and long conversation about this.
Do you know the lunar astrology?
I know a little bit, and well, I guess like, yeah, I always say like I know a little bit. I've actually been looking into it for years. And then my grandpa's really into the I Ching, so he's always like trying to give me these books.
And you're like, I'm not ready yet.
I'm just like, I can't read it because I can't read Chinese. But he's like, someday he'll be able to read this.
Oh, wow. Well, we are going into the year of the rat, which I was born in, so.
Okay, Jupiter return then.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. What is your, what do you know about the rat?
About the rat?
Yeah.
Well, it's the, it's the winter solstice sign. So it's the most, like, it's the sign with the most yin.
Oh, interesting. The most yin. Well, that explains a few things there about us. That's funny.
Yeah, so it's also the sign where, like, yin starts to decrease and yang starts to increase.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So if in the year of the rat, I wonder if that's, well, with all the planets in Capricorn, that could be an interesting offset to that. Huh. Okay. Let's talk about readings, because an interesting topic of debate on Twitter that's come up, and even with some astrologers I've talked to, there's this debate now that you have to be of a certain age or life experience to do readings for people. Sort of, some might say it's an old school way of thinking. I don't have that opinion at all. I think, but I know that some people feel very passionately one way or another. Like,
yeah, I saw the whole Twitter, like kind of
war.
drama. Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I think that, well, like the reason why I like astrology is because like you're getting counseling, but you're getting it from a peer.
Yeah.
Like you're not getting it from a professional who's going to maybe like diagnose you a certain way, or say it's like, oh, this is like just kind of like inspect you as an individual. You're getting from a peer who really knows you and is involved in your life, and in some ways, like, I don't know, there's just like a resonance. So I always feel like why would someone who hasn't had their Saturn return get it from someone who has too? Like, yeah.
And for those who are new to Astro, the Saturn return, which a lot of people know about now. Yeah. Are you in? No, you haven't had yours yet, right?
I feel like I'm going through mine right now.
Coming up on it, yeah. Yeah. So the Saturn return happens around 2930, and then, every 29 and a half years, and it's a time of maturity and kind of coming into your own and figuring out who you are and really having to restructure and prioritize. So there was a debate that, going through, because Saturn is a planet of wisdom and age, that one should at least have gone through the Saturn return before dispensing wisdom to others. And then there's the other school, which is that what you're saying, that a peer is going to know what you're going through better than someone who is from another generation, and they're going to be able to really get you.
Yeah, because they're going through it with you.
Yeah. Maybe it depends on what you're looking for from a
that's
reading
true.
too. Like, if you're looking for a super technical chart reading, someone who's a master for many years might give a more nuanced reading, but you never know. Yeah. What have you found? Do you have any experiences or anecdotes of having done a reading for a younger person and feeling like it was an asset to be closer in age to them?
Yeah, I think so. Like I don't want to like say any people's like details.
Right,
but,
right.
Like, I guess just like encouraging people sometimes to like maybe find people who are their age and going through what they're going through, if they don't have that in their lives, or but I've also had people who've like gone through their Saturn return come for me for a reading.
Yeah.
And then I think it's super cool. Like we don't maybe like talk about Saturn issues so much. We talk about like Venus or something, but like they figured their Saturn stuff out, and then we don't have to talk about it.
Right. I mean, I think you can get something from anyone.
Me too.
My daughter, who's 9, and her friends are suddenly, getting all into astrology.
I would definitely get a reading from a 9-year-old. Yeah.
I would love a reading from a 9-year-old. I mean,
right.
Maybe not on everything, but I would love to hear what a 9-year-old had to say. Yeah, you never know. Yeah. So and there is something about being gotten by someone you can relate to or feel like you can relate to.
Yeah.
How about like queer communities or communities of color? Because there was a queer astrology conference, or there've been a few of them, and there are segmentations by identity, and now gathering around astrology. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think it's the same reason. Like people like kind of see the astrology reading as therapeutic, and they want to get that from someone who can relate to the issues that they're going through.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Yeah. If like I'm going through issues about racism, then I'm going to try to find a astrologer of color.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would make sense. And how does astrology, do you feel, like lend more to that dialogue? Like if you're dealing with racism or any ism, of course you're going to want support from someone who understands. How does that tie in with this? Like, how do you think astrology lends an extra dimension of therapy or therapeutic energy to that?
Well, I think that there's certain things about all the archetypes that have to do with our history. And so like just one way of thinking about it, like, if you are talking about like Jupiter as your political ideology, then you can't really think about it apart from racism.
Oh, that's interesting. So looking at the planets as shaping your ideology, you feel Jupiter. Yeah, Jupiter. Okay, that's cool. So are you Jupiter in Capricorn also? No.
I am Jupiter in Virgo.
Virgo.
Yeah.
I'm far from it, sorry. So how do you think having Jupiter in Virgo shapes your ideology, if you don't mind a personal question there?
I think I'm pretty cynical.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you
really
critical or?
Yeah, I don't really like believe in anything. Like
Okay.
my friend last night was like, "What's your political orientation?" It's like, "Oh damn, I don't know." Like, yeah, I guess I don't really. I mean, I feel like I'm a leftist because I feel like we need that. But like I grew up in a communist country, so I feel like it. You know, I'm very flexible.
Okay. Politically flexible. Well, Virgo's a mutable sign.
Yeah.
What do you mean by flexible? I'm just going to, be all Barbara Walters here for a minute. You don't have to answer, but I'm curious.
Yeah,
Astrologers
I
are
just
curious.
think that our political ideology should be shaped by whatever system we're living under. So, like, right now it's late capitalism. There's all these like corporate oligarchs. Like, I feel pretty strongly a leftist in this moment. But if I were like, say, living in like a neoliberal state-planned economy, then I might feel differently.
Interesting. That's a bold statement. Most people wouldn't admit that.
Oh, really?
I think, yeah. I think an Aries would. Most people would say, these are my ideologies and I'm sticking with them and this is who I am. So to be fluid with your political identity and to put it in a context like that, that's not something I hear very often. Do you?
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I do hear it, but yeah.
You do? Okay.
I don't know.
Well, you have the dual lens of such, if you grew up in communism and capitalism, and you're saying your response ideologically is shaped by how you feel living in that, and that's interesting to me because that says that you're doing what astrologers, I think, encourage, which is to think freely. People think astrology a lot of times is deterministic.
Yeah.
And it was for so many years. And I think it's actually become the postmodern version of astrology is very much not deterministic.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
This is what happens when an Aries and a Sag with Capricorn North nodes start talking. 20 years apart. I think that, it was always used to be the fate. And you would go, we talked about this the other day. You would go to an astrologer and they'd tell you what was going to happen to you. Or they'd give you your prescription and you'd walk out like you had walked out from a doctor's office.
Right.
And now we're living in a world where people are more wanting to co-create everything or have a wellness coach that they make a plan based on counseling with. And then, and I think people are going to astrologers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
really,
so
not user made or something.
Yeah, it's sort of a. There's got to be a word for it. It's something of a collaborative process as you discover your chart, which is why I think we have a lot more people talking about astrology. Like they're not experts, but they're speaking knowledgeably on social media. Let's talk about social media and astrology and why do you think it's exploded so much it's really prevalent, Instagram and Twitter.
Well, I come from like the fandom world.
Tell me about that.
Like where you write fan fiction. And
you do?
fan art.
I love it. Okay.
And like I feel like you know how like there's certain fandoms that really explode when there's like a big blockbuster like movie or something.
Twilight was one.
Right.
Remember?
The Marvel comics.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like there's these spikes and then they disappear as trends. But then there's like one fandom, which is Sailor Moon, that has never spiked like that, but also never declines like that.
Yeah,
it's just
ubiquitous.
Steady.
Yeah.
Because it's like so like user create, not you like it's so like it's completely fandom. It doesn't really rely on like more original output in order to keep going.
It's not it's not trend based.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
culture,
not mass
subculture.
medium based.
Okay.
And I feel like if astrology can kind of operate in that way, where it's just like really community made, like really, and not relying on like, I don't know, a blockbuster production that's like a book or a movie, that it actually has like really real longevity.
I love that. I mean, it is a timeless art or no, that's not the right word. It's timeless craft, whatever. There's so many different words you could use. That's, yeah, I think I've seen several waves of, commercializing of astrology, and we're in one now. Like, people are really feeling drawn to it. Do you think that the political climate has to do with people wanting to figure out who they are more, or have something positive, or something to say, no, this is who I am more?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I wonder, because I feel like the political environment maybe brings people together, and then, different conversations can happen.
Well, that's true. Well, that's also a different perspective. People are talking about how the world is so divided, but you're right. It is, the divisiveness does create togetherness and a need to sort of huddle to just like, okay, it's us against this, whatever the heck is happening on the planet right now.
Well, one thing I noticed that I was just telling you about was how, like, astrology tends to revive, like, when there's far-right movements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know why, but maybe that's something that's happening right now, too.
Yeah, I want to think about that. I mean, well, when there's nationalism or far-right, it's sort of about... it becomes very moralistic. This is the way to be. This is the suppression of individuality happens with that. And astrology is such an interesting kind of, like, you can be an individual and yet you belong to one of 12 archetypes. So you're completely stereotyped, but it's the only acceptable form of stereotyping left in some ways, but it's a stereotyping that has within it, I feel, the ability or the space to have infinite identities too. Like, being a Sagittarius, I love that I have the markers of one, but I also am like, I know I'm also me. So maybe that's the chart. I don't know.
That's why I like how people are, like, I guess, like, more interested in becoming astrologers.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What do you think is driving that trend?
Just like what you said, it's like people are looking for astrology not to, like, tell them who they are, but just to kind of own a language and play with it. Because it's fun.
It is fun. And I think, like, a lot, it's a change for a lot of people who are longtime astrologers. It's like, hey, you've only been, you just did your chart for the first time 2 months ago, and now you're talking about all that. But I found that people, we lead a retreat, or we did for the last 7 years, and in 5 days teach people on the beach in Mexico how to read their chart. And they do leave with a grasp of the language. You have to keep speaking it to stay fluent, but...
And then they put all their experiences into it. So it's not like they're, like, new to it. It's just like, it's just a container for something.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I love the idea of going into this new decade, seeing that astrology may just become part, like, almost, who would have thought? Like, I don't know that it's just going to go away as a trend.
I don't think so, because it's so, like, community based.
Yeah.
It's not like the big blockbuster that people are, like, putting out there and then we just receive it or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really, it's gone away from that kind of, like, get the initial purse or get your astrology symbol bag. I mean, those are cute, don't get me wrong, but it's becoming part of the cultural language. The language of this planet is speaking the language of the other planets. And as we move into the more Aquarius planets, as 2020 progresses, I think astrology is going to really take on more of a role of acceptance. That's I don't know if you agree or not, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
There may be a backlash from some people, but I don't know. Seems like it's here to stay.
I think so too. It's never really gone away or anything.
No, but it's, I mean, I actually, it's interesting that you're saying that it's a community thing, because I really found my passion for it when Tali and I used to publish our own magazine called Hues, and it was for basically everyone, and making sure it was inclusive of people who were excluded from mainstream media in the 90s. So it was multicultural and gender diverse and everything. So we would have these group meetings to plan the magazine, and everybody would start talking about their sign, and everybody would light up. So similarly to what you found in your community groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's such a parallel between the zine culture and social media.
Yeah, there is.
And fandom too, like fan fiction used to be just zines that people would mail to each other.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
I love that you're part of that world. Why do you think that people need this? I mean, let's talk. We both went to art school, so let's talk about the desire to create versus, like you said, create versus receive messages. What is it about people making media and social media and zines and fan fiction that's empowering?
I mean, I think that people just want to make something cool.
And share it and be known and seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great act of rebellion in a world that's getting very commoditized and so what would you say to people who are in Gen Z or teens or of any age, because I'd like to see age kind of disappear a little bit as a divider the way gender is, because I think we're moving in that direction. We all have access to the same information in ways we never did. So what would you say to people, though, who are younger and want to teens, or who learn astrology and get excited and then want to do their friends' charts on an app, or start to talk to other people about astrology? What would you say?
I guess I would just tell them, like, never see your experiences less valid than another person's. Because I feel like that's important. I feel like a lot of times it's like, oh, like, I'm just, like, learning this, or, like, oh, like, I am, like, not a real person for some reason if you're young, especially if you're femme presenting. So I feel like it's just really important to be like, oh, you're having, like, a real experience, you're living in the real world, and you're a real person.
And how can, as this is me asking your community organizer Aries self, I feel like Aries are, the Aries in my life have always been like real role models for me, because I feel that they have this inner self-authorization where they don't second guess themselves. If they want to do something, they're doing it. They have this self-belief. Yeah. Like,
my friend was like, wait, how, like, I want to be an astrologer. Like, how do you do this? I was like, just do it. And actually, she had this book that said how to be a professional astrologer, and she flipped it open, and the first line she said was like, Aries says, just do it.
Wow.
I was like, wow.
Like, well, I swear I didn't look in there before.
Yeah, I didn't see the book before. It was like, that's so funny.
I mean, when you ask anyone about, like, who was born before the 1980s about astrology, oh, Linda Goodman's love signs, or Linda Goodman's sun. Linda Goodman was an Aries.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have her poetry book, and she has
a poetry book?
Yeah, she has this poem that's like astrology lesson number 1.
Oh.
And it's like a few lines. It says like, Mars is the ruler of Aries. Second line, nothing is the ruler of Aries. Mars is the ruler of the first house, and then that's better.
Ooh, that's so good.
Yeah, she's a good poet. She's so funny.
I love that. I love just maybe astrology is encouraging people to be artists still and to not lose that part of ourselves that's creative and created, and to remember that we are always able to design who we are. I feel like that's something Aries remind us of too, that why not? Why not you? Instead of why you? Who do you think you are? That's kind of the message we get. Oh, you're not. What credentials do you have? Did you take the test to qualify as an astrologer? I mean, look, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because credentials and certifications count and matter in certain aspects, but I love the permission that Aries give themselves.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I'm a fan as a fellow fire sign. So what do you want to use astrology for in the new decade?
That's a good question. Something that I want to, like, just like my New Year's resolutions kind of.
Yeah, why not?
Is like really taking seriously, like, because this is always a work in progress for me, like everyone. And is like, how do you use like a therapeutic session, like a counseling session with astrology to really like counsel racism? because there's no language for that. There's like no study of how racism affects mental health issues. It's just seen as like a biological thing, and then I feel like that really gaslights people. So I just want to like really focus on that issue this next week.
Okay, so astrological counseling for dealing with racism. I mean, I could definitely see astrology helping a person find agency, because when you because you can, racism is institutionalized, and so many people walk around blaming themselves, even if they're aware that it's not them and it's coming from outside of them. It's impossible not to take in that shame and feel like, oh well, I should be quieter, or they'll think I'm loud, or I should modulate to be accepted in these different communities, and that does take a toll on mental health. And I could see how when you're like, okay, I'm a Sagittarius with a Scorpio moon, so divorcing that from any kind of identity politics and just looking at that, it's almost a relief, because you can say, okay, how do I show up in the world, and how do other people experience me, not because of my race, but because of my chart. Like there's more freedom, I think, in looking at yourself that way.
I think that a lot of people, I feel like that's definitely a draw for like a lot of people, and me too. But I feel like there are also other times where like you just need like what you're going through to be validated.
Oh, absolutely. If not all the time.
Yeah, because actually I feel like there's a huge lack of just ways we talk about race issues.
How do you feel would be a productive way to talk about it in the new decade for the world?
I don't know. That's that's what I'm committing next year to, really figuring out and building some language around. I feel like, a big thing that I focused on this last year was just astrology, because it's such a collective language, is it's not about you as an individual. It's about how mental health issues are actually social problems. So that's why I wanted to really focus on this one social problem.
I like that. I love that you're taking this anthropological, sociological lens and weaving astrology into it. That's really interesting. One thing that I like to question everything, and this was a year of the media writing the same story over and over again about millennials and astrology.
Yeah, I did see a lot of articles about that.
Yeah, it got a little repetitive.
But not all millennials are into astrology.
I know,
and a lot of people from other generations also.
It felt like clickbait to me after a while. Like, this is the story, and we're gonna spin it this way, and everyone else followed suit. But one of the things that I saw was a claim that was made a lot was, astrology is replacing religion. So as young people are turning away from religion, they're adopting astrology. And I thought, this is not looking at the intersecting communities. I grew up in Detroit, heavily African-American city. The Black church is a pillar for so many people, and astrology is too. So it's that's not necessarily true for so many people. There are people that go to church, or Susan Miller, when she was here, she was saying she's Catholic and devoutly. So people can have religion and astrology. My mother is a rabbi. I grew up in the Jewish community, and I'm not religious, but in no way for me is astrology a religion. I mean, I'm religiously obsessed with it, but, but that's the kind of thinking that I think gets overlooked. Like, if you find strength in going to church and in doing your chart, great, you've got two sources of strength to feed you. I don't know, that's my opinion, but you just got me thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't think astrology is a religion either. I feel like it's a language. I also grew up religious. I feel like it's
a religion, if you don't mind my asking.
I went to local church. Have you heard of it?
No, what is that?
It's it's a non-denominational Christian sect.
Okay.
But it's based on the teachings of Watchman Nee, who was a Chinese missionary in England.
Interesting. And how was that for you? Is that something you're still involved in or turned away from, or
No,
neither?
I don't go to church anymore. My parents do, and then, I don't know. I feel like they go for the community.
Yeah.
Because we would go to church 4 days a week. Yeah, and we would all eat together.
And you know what? I'm glad you just said that, because that is where people are looking for from astrology.
Yeah.
Community, not religion, not God, not a, patriarchal figure who's going to make it all better or punish them.
Yeah.
They're looking for belonging.
Right.
It's how civilization survives. So, but belonging that doesn't suppress our individuality. So.
Yeah, anti-nationalistic belonging.
Yeah, that would be nice. We'll take some of that, especially in in a historic year where things could go more that way. We do need astrology. So
yeah, we live in a crazy time.
We do. We need all the tools we can get to say, no, this is who I am. And for anyone adopting astrology as sort of a new language in the 2020s, any final thoughts for them at all, or
for anyone new to astrology,
anything you would recommend? Well, let's even go into what you are really passionate about for a person of color, and or someone in a marginalized community who's discovering astrology in the 2020s in the world we're inheriting. Where do you think they should start to deepen their knowledge or their experience? Should they study with each other? Should they find someone to talk
with
to?
Each other.
Do each other's charts, learn?
Yeah, I guess I would say, never feel like your ideas are inferior again. Because, actually, I feel like a huge problem is just that, so many astrology books are by white authors. The number of, just other voices is actually, really minuscule. So I think that, if you're a person of color, approaching astrology, well, a lot of the stuff, you might, kind of squint your eyes at. And then, I mean, of course, because, you're used to doing this, you'll find something, a pearl wisdom, from it anyway. Yeah. But I would just say, don't shut up. You just keep, creating your content, and it's valid that you're here and doing this.
And hopefully we will be seeing even more books from astrologers of color. And, we had Colin Bedell on, who just did Queer Cosmos, and, just more of those intersecting perspectives.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
It's more interesting that way,
Yeah.
But it's not just about that. It's just, this is the world we live in, so let's have it reflect that. So, so... Awesome. Any parting thoughts for the new decade for the world, or any astrological transits you're excited about?
Excited
in the 20s or not excited about but know are coming? Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen with that huge conjunction of
with Saturn and Pluto in early January. I don't think anybody does so far. The jury's
That's
out. Of course, maybe when you're watching this it'll have happened, but
a recession's always coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, no matter what, it's coming.
Yeah,
one
no matter
of these
what,
years
it's coming.
Or days.
So I guess you can't really prepare.
I mean, I suppose you can the best you can, but you can prepare by creating a community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And making sure you have people.
Yeah. So. That's very true.
Yeah, community. That's what I'm taking away from this talk.
Yeah.
The astrology is a community builder.
Yeah.
A way of feeling validated, a way of soothing the stress of mental health burdens that are imposed on people by living in a world of racism and other isms, and just the importance of
people in your life.
Yeah, and giving yourself
and supporting
permission.
people.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for chatting with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, great talk, and wishing you a created 2020 where you let yourself explore the way you do. Let yourself play with ideas.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it. Listen to the Aries. Bye.